What is up, everyone? Hello, and welcome to this episode of the TSMU Q&A series. I'm your host this evening, Christian Homili. If you haven't met me, just a little info for those of you who haven't seen me on here before. I'm the global sales manager for TSM. I work closely with brands, and I try to make deals, and I'm really the first introduction brands have into TSM and what we offer. I like to come up with fun activations and help pitch TSM in esports. It's really good to be back, y'all. Yeah, I know it's been a while since I personally have been on the show, so I'm definitely excited to be on here today, especially because we are joined by who I think is a really cool and different guest from our typical esports roster, Haylesh Patel, who is an amazing exercise psychologist. How are you doing, Haylesh?
Very well, thanks for having me.
No, thanks for so much for coming on. Haylesh is an interesting personality. Again, I think it's a sector. He represents a sector of esports that, at first glance, a lot of people don't think about. Right, the real growth and innovation into the professional side of things, if you will. And again, I think this show is going to be really exciting because there's a little bit of fun twist to this. The first half, Haylesh is actually going to walk us through a PT program. That we can follow along, learn a lot about it, and just see what goes into the ins and out of what pro players might have to deal with. I don't know about you guys, but I'm really excited. I have a really messed up risk, so hey, Lish, that we'll put that on the docket. I'm gonna need to figure out something for that going on. But I think it's also for those who may be, aspiring professional or even a student who's at the computer all day. And let's be real, playing games on the side of it. So very exciting stuff. After the first half of that program, we'll resume with our regularly scheduled Q&A. Um, for the second part, just a quick reminder slash overview for those who have not seen the show yet. For this Q&A, we'll be pulling questions from our TSMU Discord. So if you have questions for Haylesh, please head to the Discord. Please head to discord.gg/TSMU and ask your questions in the Ask Stream Questions Here channel. Once you've asked your question, if it's a call question, please join the waiting room voice channel to wait to be selected to join us on the show. While people get the questions in, kind of settle down and get used to everything, Haylesh, to set us all up, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do as an esports psychologist, and a little bit about how you got to where you are.
Yeah, for sure. My name's Hayes Patel. Thanks for having me again. I'm a clinical exercise physiologist, so not a psychologist, a physiologist. So psychology takes care of like the mental side of things. I'm more about the physical side of things, but physical and mental they go together. So originally I'm from New Zealand. I ended up at UC Irvine in California, and I worked there for a number of years, for about 5 years, and then there's an interesting story of how I got started into esports and esports health and wellness. I was working at campus recreation at UC Irvine. Heard about the program that we have on campus. We have a fantastic program, which our director, Mark Deppy, has put together. And went to one of the symposiums. They're talking about esports, and me being a long life gamer myself, started playing games from back when I was like 7 years old. Started playing Quake back in the day. Blame my brother for getting me addicted onto Quake and whatnot. But I've always wanted to tie the two together. I'm a sportsman from a background, but also a long life gamer, and want to meld the two together. And there was a perfect opportunity with UCI Esports developing the program. And so I was sitting there listening to the symposium, and I was like really excited hearing about the scholarships that they're going to be providing for the players for the two teams. But no one was talking about health and wellness. And I was thinking, there's a huge opportunity here to either one, improve the longevity of these individuals or these students that are playing video games, looking to improve, optimize their performance, and then also trying to let them do and be successful both in game and out of game. And there are a number of things that we could have done for them. So we put together a little program, my boss and I at Campus Recreation, and yeah, it kind of spiraled from there into this developing a comprehensive health and wellness program that focused on the physical side of things, so lifting weights, doing some cardiovascular activity, stretching, flexibility, we talk about nutrition, sleep, rest, and non-sleeping activities. So it's very holistic in the program that we do with our players. It's not just focused on specifically them sitting at the computer and what they're doing there, but both inside and outside of the game, what we can do to help to optimize their overall performance.
No, it's good to
Um,
hear. I mean, as someone who's an amateur for the most part, have zero categories of those checked off. So excited to hear about that.
yeah, for sure. And just a little bit more about my background. So yeah, I'm a clinical exercise physiologist. I have my master's in exercise science from the University of Auckland in New Zealand. So that's why I sound a little bit different. Um, and I'm a registered clinical exercise physiologist with the American College of Sports Medicine. Recently, so I've left UCI just fairly recently, only just 2 weeks now. I've moved back to New Zealand. So I'm working here in New Zealand for an exercise physiology clinic called Optimize Health, where I help out with health and rehabilitation for healthy and quite sick individuals, mostly people suffering from cardiac conditions that need help and rehabilitation to get back into daily life and do things like that. But still dabbling within health and wellness and esports because it's such a huge topic, a huge area that really needs help, and people aren't really too many people are talking about it. But it's something that I'm definitely passionate about.
No, it's really cool. I think there is, again, like I said earlier, there's a lot of intangibles or unknowns that a lot of people have this space, and I think it's obviously really cool to have someone like you involved, working in and taking care of our players at the full and most part. I think even at the professional level, I know that you guys are the unsung heroes of at least our programs, and I'm sure it's the same. I was the same at UCI, and it continues the same. And I hope stretches down to the collegiate to younger levels. The programming that I hope that we're about to undertake, at least a little bit of glimpse of it, is what keeps our players sane and keeps them in between. So,
Yeah,
why don't I pass the mic to you then a little bit? We'll do a little bit of reverse here. Normally I'm the host, but I think this one I'll be the guest and kind of undertake this awesome program.
yeah, for sure. Awesome. So yeah, we'll jump straight into it. Just want to talk a little bit about the background before we go into the routine. I've got a little routine for everyone to follow along with at home, just to help basically prevent and maintain what you have. Prevention is probably the key. A lot of us, actually, a lot of the players that I've worked with tend to have something going on, whether it's with their forearms, their wrists, their shoulders, their back, and their neck. The most common injuries that I see are predominantly with the upper body. Um, yeah, wrists, shoulders, necks, and also lower back pain as well, and some little issues going on with the hips from just sitting down for prolonged periods of time. And as we all know, we're not designed to sit for a long period of time, but esports is a sedentary, activity by nature. Um, so we kind of want to negate those negative effects. Just looking into a little bit more about the wrist, hands, and fingers, the most common things that I see are overuse or repetitive strain injuries. And it's just from that repetitive motion. Generally, it's with the mouse, the right hand that we use for the mouse. Um, Now and then it is with the left side with our keyboard inputs, but predominantly it's with the right hand that I'm seeing. But it can be back and forth depending on what's going on with the person. So it's overuse. Repetitive strain injuries are up there. Also, another one called tunnel syndrome, which people are probably fairly familiar with. And then also thumb pain from a lot of, I guess, intense gripping of the mouse or a particular hand position that you're using, whether they're like a palm gripper or claw gripper or however you're using to use your grip onto your mouse. That tends to be one of the biggest ones that I see as well. Symptoms that most people feel are pain, of course, inflammation, sometimes some numbness and tingling as well. So if you've ever experienced any of these kind of things, like what I usually recommend for people, if you're experiencing something, you want to take care of it straight away. You don't want to just kind of like, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm just going to keep playing. It'll go away or ignore it. It's better to get things looked at straight away. So, like, if you have any of these symptoms like pain, inflammation, numbness and tingling, those especially, I recommend just going to see someone straight away. So, go and see your PCP, go and see a physical therapist or somebody just to get it checked out, just to see what's going on. Because prevention or early prevention is key. And that's the biggest thing that I've seen throughout my entire career, whether it's working with high performance athletes or working with rehabilitation clients or esports athletes. It's getting in there early and providing you with the tools and resources and things to help mitigate what's going on. Um, and usually, if you get it early, you only need like a minimal treatment from there. So, like, say if it's some kind of repetitive injury that going on with your wrist or your fingers, generally it's stretching, a little bit of compression, and a little bit of rehabilitation that you'll need. If you leave it too late, then that's where things start to get complicated. Your body starts to adapt and kind of, try and cope with what's going on with the pain and the inflammation, and that can lead down to potentially you not playing or you needing surgery, and that's going to leave you out of the game for a prolonged period of time. And that's something that we probably want to avoid. Um, like, yeah, so that's just not what we want at all.
You have
So
any
early,
oh, sorry, just
no, you
kind
go
of
for it.
interrupt.
No, you go for
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I actually just out of curiosity for those who might not have access to obviously some coaches or even understand like how to begin identifying when the pain when it occurs and for what reason, right? Do you have any suggestions, whether that be like daily check-ins? Okay, is my is my wrist hurting, or like post session, how's my body feeling? Are there anything from a mental slash preemptive side of you where I guess regular students or younger, more amateur gamers aspiring to be professionals can really be in the mindset of like, hey, I need to be constantly checking my body after each game session, or maybe it's a weekly thing or whatnot.
Yeah, no, Christian, that's an awesome point. I'm a big fan of routines. I think a lot of us have our routines that we do before we go into game. Like physical athletes always warm up before they go onto the pitch or whatever they're going to be doing. Same for esports athletes. We want to be warming up and checking in with ourselves before we play. So going through like your mental checklist to see how you are. You're like mentally prepared to play. Are you physically prepared to play?
Hmm.
Physically, we're going to get into the routine, and this is kind of like a routine that I like showing people because you can go through these motions and kind of check and be like, okay, yeah, how's my wrist feeling? How are the flexors? How are the extensors? How are my fingers feeling? And if something is off that day, maybe that might be a reason for you to kind of like pull it back that day a little bit, make sure you're nice and warm before you play, maybe do some additional stretching, or potentially just like cutting back and skipping out for that particular day if you're able to. But yeah, setting up like a routine for yourself before you play. So having like a warm up routine. I know if you're an FPS player, you're going to do whether it's aim training or jumping into game and
Hmm.
doing some quick matches before you play. And for the other side as well for all the different types of games like League and whatnot. But yeah, having that routine in place to check in with yourself is just super super key.
Cool, good to know. Yeah, everyone get your warm up routines ready. Make sure you take care of your body. It's not just aim labs. Sometimes it's IRL stuff you do. That's good advice.
Yeah, definitely. The last point I wanted to touch on before we get into the routine is, why it's important to take care of your body. Kind of, I guess, common sense, but for long-term health, we just want to make sure that you can do what you want to do, whether it's playing esports, whether it's in the classroom or it's outside of the classroom, doing anything, just being pain-free and being able to move around and, yeah, do what you want to do. Also, secondly, high performance. So performing at your peak potential for as long as you want as well. So if you have any pain or numbness or tingling or something that's going to hinder your performance, then you're not going to be at your optimal performance or your peak performance. And if you're aspiring to eventually go and play professional, or if you're in the amateur leagues and you want to be playing consistently, then this is something that is really key for you to be focusing on as well. And we don't want you to retire early. Seeing it far too often, like in the media, hearing about
Hmm.
professional esports players in their prime just having to stop, whether it's for overuse injuries or like severe health concerns, just neglecting their bodies. And honestly, I think that the majority of the cases that we've seen in the media regarding professional players like stopping or not being able to play, they're totally preventable with some key actions in place and having that routine again. And it's not just a pre-game routine, but it's having like a routine for life. So, fleshing out some time to take care of your body, whether it's going to the gym, you don't have to go to the gym, but finding some kind of activity that you like doing, whether it's yoga, running, cycling, even walking or hiking, doing some stretching throughout the day, and then nutrition is a big piece as well. Putting in the good fuel into your body so you get those really good results.
Cool, cool. Checking off my list, making sure I again zero starting from somebody. I think the cool thing is here is I think hopefully all of you guys are realizing if you're starting at zero. I for one starting from zero. I definitely fall into the rut of just not paying attention to anything. And although I'm definitely not a pro athlete, I'm sure a lot of there's a lot of things for everyone that you can take from it.
Yeah, most definitely. All right, let's jump straight into routine. So I've got a little warm-up routine that we're going to go through, predominantly some stretching with a few exercises in there. Before we jump into things, before you start doing any type of stretching, you want to make sure that your joints and your hands and everything are nice and warm. So I've got a few warm-up exercises for us to do. So first up, it's going to be wrist rolling. You're going to pop your hands together and together, and then what you're going to do is just roll your wrist one way. You can do about 5 to 10 rolls one way, and then you're going to go the opposite way. So I'm going to count it out for us. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and we're going backwards the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, relax out, man. We're going to roll out our wrist or do some wrist circles. So hands out in front of you, and you're just going to roll gently, rolling your wrist You can either go clockwise, anti-clockwise, whichever you want to way you want to go. I'm gonna do about 5 or 6 of these one way. Rotate and go the other way. 3, 4, 5, 6. Now, if you're hearing some clicking in your wrist, like my wrist click like all the time, that's completely normal. That doesn't mean there's something wrong with your wrist. It's just within your joints, there's fluid and little bones and whatnot, and there's little cracks that happen in there, and that's completely normal.
That was my
Let's get
follow-up question. I was like, Haylish, I'm feeling the clicks. Do
yeah.
I need to go to the doctor right after this? I'll be right back.
No, definitely not. I mean, if you're going through that range of motion, you start to feel any pain, then that would be something
Yeah.
to note as we go through, and then maybe that might be something you want to go and get looked at. But if it's just clicking or a little bit of a little bit of a feeling there, then that's totally fine. Let's keep going through. We're going to warm up our wrist a little bit more. We're going to do the wrist wave. I guess it's like the worm action. We're going to do 6 of these going one way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let's go the other way. A little bit of coordination involved here. 5, 6. All right. Now hands out in front of you. You're just gonna stretch out your fingers as wide as you can. So you're stretching them out, and then you're gonna make a fist and squeeze your fist as hard as you can. We're gonna do 4 or 5 of those. So fingers out as far as you can, really stretching them out, and then making a fist and squeezing that as hard as you can. Let's do a couple more of those. Fingers out, stretching them out as far as you can, spreading those fingers out and thumbs out as far as you can, and then squeezing, making a fist. One more to go. Fingers out, and then make a fist, and relax that one. All right, the last one, might need a little bit of space for this. One of my favorite ones to warm up with. I don't know if you can see it on the screen here. I'm going to have to give myself a little bit of an angle here. I've got a wall right here. What you're basically going to do, put your arms out to the side. You can only see one of my hands, but you're going to point your fingers down towards the ground. So you got to feel a good stretch up through your biceps, up through your elbow, down through your forearms. And what you can do is you're going to curl up your fingers into a fist. When you get to that point, you're going to come up and go into a bicep curl, show me your muscles, and then we're going to go back down the other way. All right. So basically going from an extended position, so extending your wrist and your fingers down, curling them up, come into a bicep curl, and then the gun show. Let's do a couple more of those. This is just helping to stretch out, one, our ligaments and tendons, but also the nerves in our fingers and forearms. Curling these up, coming through, bicep curl, really squeeze when you get to here, like really do like a big flex, like you're looking in the mirror. Flex those muscles. I can see you're doing it, Christian. That's good.
Yeah. You sit from the gym, but in a
Yeah.
more douchebag Chachi way than actual physical therapy. Just
Yeah.
kidding.
All right, one more to go. Curling up those fingers, coming into a bicep curl, squeeze, and relax. All right, so that's just one way to get yourself warmed up. There are various different other ways. Like maybe you just did like a workout, maybe just doing some push-ups. Maybe have like a hand warmer or something that you're using as well. That's a perfect way to hand warm up your fingers and your forearms before you get going as well.
Yeah, that,
We're
that
gonna go.
actually brings up a good point. Sorry, really quick for coming. Do you
Yeah,
do
yeah.
you incorporate a lot of third-party tools? Third party, I don't even think it too sales, but like physical therapy tools. I know hypervolt massage guns, balls. Those are really big, new factors in the play as of the last year.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, actually, Hyperice, they sponsored us with a bunch of products and for some, yeah, part of our program earlier on in our program. So we had a bunch of different devices that we could use. So massaging, like the massaging balls and the vibrating guns, those are all good things to use as well. Within reason as well, like you don't want to go overboard, just spending like
Mhm.
2 or 3 minutes on some key areas. If you never used one of those before, always want to hit like the fleshy parts and making sure that you're getting like the muscle. Don't hit the
Yeah.
bone because that is epically sore if you ever hit yourself with one of those. You don't want to do that. But yeah, third-party devices like that. Even if you just have like something like a tennis ball, or a
Ooh.
lacrosse ball, those are really good as well. Just to warm yourself up with your chest or your forearms and whatnot. Those are really good as getting the blood flowing to the areas that we need. Alrighty, let's jump into some stretches. So the first, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stretches to go through just to get everything nice and warmed up and nice and loose. And like I said, the whole reason why we're doing this is prevention and maintenance of what we have going on. So it's going to help, yeah, just keep everything at the level it is right now and hopefully improve it a little bit as well. So let's start out with our left arm out. You want to have your elbow out nice and straight. Relax your shoulder down. I'm going to put my hand towards the camera so everyone can see. So I got my 5 fingers sticking out. What I want you to do is to grab onto your thumb with your other finger or your other hand, and you're going to pull back gently towards your body or towards yourself. So I do mention pull gently. You know, our fingers are pretty delicate structures. You don't want to be yanking on them too hard. And generally, I would say hold this for about 20 seconds. Just for time's sake today, we'll hold them for about 5 to 10 seconds just so we can get through it. But you just want to make sure that you're stretching that, relaxing the rest of the fingers, but stretching that particular finger or thumb that we're using. Let's go on to the index finger there, pulling back nice and gently. All right, let's go to middle finger. Going onto the ring finger. And then we're going on to our pinky as well. Okay, switch on over. Let's go on to the other arm to get your other arm out. Making sure that you relax your shoulder. If I can point my camera down just a tiny bit so you can see a little bit better there. Keeping that shoulder relaxed, keeping your elbow nice and straight, and then keeping your fingers outward in front of you. Let's start with your thumb again. Grab into your thumb and pulling it back. And like I said, usually hold this for about 20 seconds. And what this is doing is pulling our tendons through, up through our forearms, and up through the little, I guess the little sheath or the carpal tunnel in our wrist here, helping to loosen things up. Let's go into the index finger, onto the middle finger, onto the ring finger, and the pinky too. All right, relax that one. Now we're going to go into one called flexion, wrist flexion and extension. So let's go back to our left arm. Going to keep your left arm out in front of you, relaxing it down again. You've got your forefingers here. Grab your other forefingers. You're going to pull back gently on your fingers right here. And you should feel a really nice stretch through the bottom of your forearm down through there. So we just targeted each individual, I guess, tendon for each little finger, but now we're grabbing them all together so you can put a little bit more pressure on there. Once again, you don't want to be snapping your fingers back or doing any damage there, so just be gentle, pulling it back, and relax. And we're going to go the other way now, so you're going to put your palm facing downwards. I want you to make a fist with your hand, and grab into that fist with your other hand and pull back gently. And it's going to be super gentle as you can, but pulling it until you feel a little bit of tension. Most people or some people won't feel anything through the stretch, and that's completely fine. That just means you're flexible up through that particular area. So that's with anything in the stretching. You should feel like a little bit of tension, but if you don't, you don't want to just be yanking on it where you're going to do any damage or anything. So nice and gentle with that one, and relax. Let's go on to our other hand. So forefingers up, grab your other forefingers, relax that shoulder down, elbow straight, pull back on your fingers. Hold that for a few more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Relax. Let's make a fist. Pop that fist down. Grab onto your fist with your hand and just pull back gently. Once again, keeping that elbow down, keeping that shoulder down, nice and relaxed. Okay, we're going to stay seated for the next one. We're going to work on our shoulders a little bit. Now we're moving up the chain of our forearm or upper body. And the reason why we're doing that, if you have something going on with your wrist or your forearms, generally there's something else going on up the top, whether that's like tightness in your chest, something going on, tightness with your neck. So we want to be addressing everything through here. It's specifically not just your forearms that we're talking about, but it's up through the whole upper body region. So it's really key that we get that. So let's start with the shoulder stretch. You can take one arm across your body. You're going to pull back on your elbow and then tuck that in as close as you can towards your body. Keeping this arm nice and straight. I want you to watch where your shoulder is. Make sure your shoulder is not veering up, but keep it down nice and flat. Generally, you'll feel this one. Sometimes people feel it deep in the front of their shoulder, sometimes in the back of the shoulder and their posterior delt, or maybe deep within their shoulder joint. Wherever you feel it, that'll be good. If you don't feel anything, that means once again, you're very flexible. Let's relax that one and go the other way. Other arm out across your body, pulling back on your elbow, really hugging that in towards your chest and holding that nice and tight. All right, relax that one. We're going to go on to a neck stretch. So I'm just gonna zip myself just a little bit here. What I want you to do is to grab your hand and kind of, we've got a little V shape that we can make with our hand here. I want you to put that V right on your collarbone so everyone can kind of feel where the collarbones are. You got your left one and your right one here. Just place it on top or slightly below it. That's just going to help to anchor that point there. And then what I want you to do is to look up to the sky as high as you can. Keep your mouth closed, don't be talking like I am, and to stretch out the front of your neck. So you're going to hold that for about 10 seconds. Might feel a little bit of tension through here. And while you're stretching there, if you want to, you can veer off to like one side off to the left or right, depending on how that feels, just to stretch out the left side and the right side of your neck.
It's what the hold on the collarbone does. That's interesting.
Yeah, so if you what you're anchoring that point down, because if you let go of that, what tends to
Oh,
happen is that that part just kind of starts to lift up a little bit. So what it does is anchor those muscles down, or the insertion points of those muscles are kind of down around the collarbone area, down on those
hmm.
upper ribs. So holding those down really helps to feel that intense stretch. Okay, so after that, the next one, I'm not sure if anyone can do this, but you'll need the piece of the wall, but I'm going to show you right behind me. A chest stretch. So you're going to stand up out of your seat. What you want to do is put your arm at 90 degrees. So hopefully you can see me here. The room's a little bit quite dark in here, but popping your arm, having a 90-degree angle with your arm up on the wall here, locking that shoulder on the wall. And what you want to do is turn your body away from the wall until you feel a stretch through your chest. So we're all spending quite a bit of time on the computer doing all our different activities, whether gaming or non-gaming activities, and probably pretty much most of us will suffer from some kind of rounding in the shoulder or tightness in our chest. So this is a really, really key stretch uh, to be doing for everybody. There is a modification for this one that I do want to note. So if you have your hand in this right angle position, that's getting the more of the middle fibers of your chest. But you also want to get the upper or the smaller fibers or the lower fibers. If you raise your hand up a little bit higher up, that gets a different portion of your chest or your chest muscles, and that will help to stretch out as well. And like I mentioned before, holding this for about 20 seconds on each side. Let's switch on over and do the other side just to keep things nice and even. You won't be able to see me too well on this side, but I got my hand on the wall, my arm on the wall there. Arms at 90 degrees, and you're going to turn yourself out and away from the wall. So really opening up that chest, really use that wall as an anchor point, and then looking over your shoulder to open up that chest. Now I'm just going to move my hand up slightly higher just to get those other middle fibers, or not the middle fibers, but the lower fibers, keeping that shoulder down, locking into the wall, and looking over my other shoulder. Okay, and relax that. So I'm going to stay standing. There are the last two exercises that I want to do. So those were the stretching, or that's the stretching portion of um, the routine. So we've got a couple of exercises here. The first one is called wall angels. I'm just going to demonstrate here. You can see me on the wall here. Some of you may have done this before, maybe not. So I'm standing up against the wall. Can't see my feet, but I've got my heels touching the wall. Got my bottom touching the wall, my upper back is touching the wall, and I've got the back of my elbow and the back of my hand touching the wall. And what I want you to do is to slide your arms up the wall as high as you can, and then bring them back down. And you only need to do 5 of these. So it's not about speed with these ones, it's all about control. So really trying to keep those points of contact. You don't have to have your heels on there, but I do want your bottom to be touching, your upper back to be touching the wall, and your hands. Now this one might be a bit difficult for everyone just doing it here, sitting in your seats and whatnot. You can do this while you're on the wall. Alternatively, you don't have a wall to use, or you can't find an appropriate position. You can also do it lying on the floor, which is another good one. So sliding up the wall, and then bringing your hands back down, sliding up the wall, and bringing your hands back down. And what this one does is just, it's a really great exercise to open up the chest, open up the shoulder blades, and just open up this whole region to allow more space for the tendons and ligaments and the nerve to come through, up through that region. So just 5 of those, that's all you need to do for the wall angels. And the last exercise, you can come and take a seat, and these will be neck tucks. I'm sure everyone's probably heard of neck tucks, basically giving yourself a double chin. Why we do this exercise predominantly is generally with spending a lot of time on the computer, we tend to have tightness through our chest, And then we have weakness through one of our deep neck flexors, and this is a particular exercise that helps to strengthen up those particular muscles. So for the neck tuck, I'm just going to go side onto the camera here. Going to be sitting nice and upright. Basically, I kind of like push my chin in, give myself a double chin, and I'm trying to straighten my neck. So basically, I'm trying to push my neck back, but I'm also pushing it up at the same time. So it's kind of a rotation with my neck down, and then trying to extend my head up. Imagining that someone has a piece of string on the top of my head. So I'm pulling my neck back, and then someone is pulling that string up as high as they can. So we're going to hold that for 10 seconds. And it's only 3 sets of 10 seconds, and that's it. So we're going to just do a couple of those. So tucking the neck in, sitting up nice and high, holding that for 10. And relax. Usually give yourself about 5 seconds in between and then repeat it again. Now, you don't have to keep your hand there as long as you're really tucking your chin down towards your chest and extending your head up as high as you can. Then you know you'll be doing it. It may not feel like you're doing too much to start with, but the longer you hold it and build up from there, the better it will be for you. And relax. Alrighty, so that's the warm up routine that I recommend that I've been taking our players through to do to specifically take care of their forearms, their shoulders, and their neck and whatnot. Um, like I said before, and actually like Christian mentioned before, there are different other activities and different devices you can use, whether it's like a massaging gun or a vibrating ball, or things like I said, like a tennis ball is like a really good way just to warm up the different areas. Another way that if you don't have a device, is just use your hands. Give yourself a little bit of a massage. If you're a little bit tight, relax your arm on your desk there, and just get in there into the different areas of your forearm. So just massaging up and down your forearms on the bottom part of your hand, on the top part of your hand, and also up through your forearm and up through your hands and fingers. Just making sure everything is nice and loose and nice and warm before you get into your aim training or whatever it is that you're going to go and do.
That's great. Thanks, Haylesh. I feel refreshed, relaxed, ready for the rest of the show. Maybe lose some elo after that. No, it's great. Pre quote. This does not necessarily help increase elo automatically or any games played. Fair little pretext to that, but at least keeps your body repped more, so you can play more in the long run. No,
Exactly.
thank you for that. I definitely feel refreshed and relaxed, and I think a lot of that too is super interesting. I feel like it's a lot of exercises that at least I myself, have typically definitely done in a regular gym, so it doesn't really stand out too much from what you're doing. And I think there was a cool little caveat, obviously, minus the ones of us standing up. There it was very much what you could do in the chair, and I think it's almost like that friendly reminder, like, hey, these exercises are just simple to do, but can literally do a huge impact in your career. So I think that was cool to see as well.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, so that's a really great point you're making, Christian. Like the exercises don't have to be complex. You don't have to be at the gym doing like forearm flexion extension with like a dumbbell or anything like that. It's just simple things to take care of yourself, and if you're consistent and do them every day or most days of the week, that's going to go a long, long way to help with your longevity and your performance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know we talked about hyper ice and having those guns. Obviously, they definitely help. But it seems like all you need is your body weight in a wall, right? In your chair.
Exactly.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for walking us through that, Halish. I think what we could do is definitely cater towards off to the second part of this evening, which is a more standard Q&A. I think if just a quick reminder for those or who are just either joining us now, or just a quick refresher on how to ask questions. Feel free to jump into discord.gg/tsmu channel and ask your questions in the Ask Stream Questions Here channel. I think we have a good amount cycled through already, so why don't we start off the bat? Halish, you talked. I think someone in your role slash with your role, and someone who's been as experienced as you are in the past, are definitely making waves in esports and kind of the industry, and we're now at a place where we look at health and wellness, and not only just physical but mental. It's absolutely crucial and essential to these pro players' lives. I think, do you have, I guess my personal question is, do you see any friction from players that either just join the program, or even young rookies, or even those who are still aspiring to impression, they just understand this is a very big part of what you do? I guess ultimately, how are you able to really get your point across to a lot of these gamers about the importance of health and everything that you do?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you think about esports, you don't really think about like health and wellness at all. It's like, really, I'm sedentary. I'm in front of a computer using mouse and keyboard or a controller. Like, why do I need to, go and move around and whatnot? And yeah, it's a fair point, and but it's such an important point, like I was highlighting before, for longevity and long term health and performance. These are things that we want to be doing for that optimize our health and performance. The main way that I get it across with people is usually within ECCI esports, what we're doing are education sessions and really talking about the why this is important. Like, how is it going to affect your in-game performance, but also out-of-game performance and your long-term health. And touching on the key points, we all have our different triggers. I would say. I mean, I don't know if trigger is the best word to use, but there are different things that really kind of inspire us or really push us forward, whether it's aspirations to be a professional player or if it's, maybe you have some health issues that are going on. You really want to make sure that, you don't spiral out of control in that regard. But finding like a particular area that really works for that person to touch on, and then helping them understand that this is going to help them through not just this one specific aspect of, you know, play video games, but actually in other aspects of their life. So it's really about communicating and having like conversations with individuals to talk about um, how it is going to affect them in all these different aspects of their life.
You bring up the word individuals. I'd imagine a lot of these programs are pretty specific to person. I think that's something that you definitely have to take into account, especially if you're, I guess, just the trainer, but working with each player at a individual level.
Yeah, most
Uh,
definitely. So yeah, I look at everyone as individuals. Like, I mean, we could do like cookie cutter programs and be like, yeah, here's a program, just give it to everybody. But
mhm.
that's not going to be effective. Like, I give it to you, Christian, and it might work for you, but it probably won't work for you because we all have our different strengths and weaknesses. So, as we're going through the program, we're looking at like measured a bunch of different measures, like physical measures, like body weight, height and weight, body composition, their fitness levels, strength and flexibility, and I pick and choose, and then from there, I'm seeing like, okay, this particular person needs a little bit more stretchy. This person needs a little bit more upper body strength or
Mhm.
lower body strength or whatever it may be, and then making a customized, tailored program around that because that's going to be more effective in the long term.
Yeah, what are some of the, I guess, the some other key points when you create plans for players? I think you talked a little bit of the general versus individual, but when you are working with someone versus a whole team, what goes into building that plan and how you determine, the exercises that do and what they need to follow, or maybe it's a certain pinpoint that a certain player is struggling with. Like, is that really it? Just kind of identifying, their struggles and seeing what works for the what.
Yeah, great question. I mean, like, yeah, looking at their strengths and their weaknesses, that's a really big one. But then also it comes down to what the person likes and what they're else they're doing. Like, some of our players were already in the gym working out like 5 times a week, which is fantastic. So it's kind of helping with like if they wanted to improve, like get bigger muscles, so a hypertrophy specific hypertrophy program for them. Or if it's someone that was potentially running for like a half marathon, give them some tweaks for their running program, also some stretching or some mobility. Or maybe it's someone that has never looked at a weight or been into a gym before and just creating a program around them of like introducing them into exercise and finding them things to do. So yeah, it's really tailored and individual, um, and just picking and choosing exercises or activities that people like to do that they will continue to do consistently throughout the weeks and months.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of individual conversations you have with people, figuring out not only what they like and don't like, but it's just kind of almost like a checks and balances, or just like how their week's going, and you kind of like, oh, that's good, taking note.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just like when you go to the doctor, like you don't want your doctor just be like
Mhm.
generic and give you something generic. You want them to understand exactly what's going on with you and then giving you a treatment plan that's going to help tailor to whatever's going on. So it's exactly the same approach.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think the next question I'm actually kind of curious because obviously, there's two parts in the title that I'm looking at right now: exercise psychologist, right? My layman's terms, it's almost like exercise is that physical element, the point of the stretching that you just took us through. But the psychologist part of it rings interesting to me because I think one thing that I've been that's been incredible to see as someone who's been in the scene the whole time and experiencing the quote unquote toxicity slash grinded attitude that was like 20 years ago versus you have people nowadays like Voy Boy, or a doctor on Twitch. I am blanking on his name for some reason. Great fellow. It'll come to
I
me
know
later.
I know who you're talking about. I can't remember
Yeah.
either. Yeah.
He's a huge name. I'm sure someone in chat is able to know it. But anyways, what I love seeing these people come out, pros come out like Arcadian, or even Santorin, talking about the mental fortitude, right? I know that's a huge aspect of things nowadays to making sure the pros' well-being is we're seeing them as humans, and just like humans, they struggle mentally with a lot of high stress scenarios. So, what are some of the main differences when you're creating kind of physical and mental health plans for esports players, or maybe opposed to sports or students? I guess, to be clear on the question, is it a lot? Is there differences between the physical side of things or the mental side of things, or how do you incorporate that second part of your title in there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so esports is a cognitive activity. So it's not physical. So it's not like playing football. It's not like playing basketball. So if I was working with an athlete, we'll be focusing heavily on the physical side of things, also on the mental side of things. But they'll be more of like for the sports psychologist for them to touch on. Um, but with it being cognitive as well, we don't want to neglect the physical side of things because the mind follows the body and the body follows the mind. So it's both aspects. So if you're not feeling great physically, you're not going to be feeling great mentally. So that's why we really
Hmm.
focus on that physical side of things. At UCI Esports, we were very fortunate to have a team psychologist that worked directly with our players in group sessions and one-on-one if that was required. But I think it's just such a huge tool that, I mean, there's a lot of stigma still around seeking help and talking to seeking like mental health services and things like that because people think that if I go to talk to someone, there's something wrong with me, but really anybody could benefit from it. I mean, there's just, if you're trying to be a better
Hmm.
individual, if you're trying to understand how you think and feel, um, and if you understand that better and can put some tools and resources into, optimizing that side of things, the mental side of things, you're going to be leaps and bounds ahead of your competitors and people that you're competing against and working towards, especially with people that are aspiring to go professional. Not even just that, but just in general. Yeah, I think it's such a huge aspect that is neglected. Um, but yeah, esports is highly cognitive. So, like you brought up, there are different aspects of it, whether it's communication with players. If there's team dynamics, sometimes there's team conflicts that are going on, and things like that. So, there were different tools and resources that we provide in sessions via our team psychologist that we were able to provide for our particular players.
How about towards the relationship, I guess, in your thoughts and mindset of that of esports and maybe more of a traditional slash general route? Do you find a lot of similarities when if you're comparing like an esports player to like like a baseball player or a basketball player? I'd imagine there's a lot of crossover in layouts, but I think each sport and not only esports is so different, right? How do you take those differences and almost craft a new program that is really new versus, I'm sure, sports medicine has been around for decades of times with more of the traditional realm. Like how different is it the traditional to the esports?
I mean, there's such a wealth of knowledge, especially if you like the
Hmm.
scientific literature regarding like the physical and the mental side of things for both traditional athletes. The esports side of things is lacking, but there are a lot of things that we can draw from from the traditional side.
Hmm.
So, um, I guess to answer your question, the short answer is there isn't really a huge difference at the moment. If you're looking at the scientific literature, so right now we just have tools and resources that we well established and we know that work. So those are things that we're implementing.
Cool. No, absolutely. I think that's really cool to hear. Like I think you always have your similar contrasts and comparisons to traditional sports, and I'm sure the word sport and being in it itself, we take a lot and draws case studies. Obviously, I don't esports might be a thing in the last couple decades, but sports been around for the last century. So I'm sure it's a lot of problems that you find overlap and kind of tackle head on.
Most
Next
definitely.
question. Oh, sorry, good.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Yeah. The next question is, in your opinion, how well is the esports industry doing in adopting exercise plans, for their players' well-being? I think, personally, there seems like there is a ways to go, but already, like I said, it feels like it, or like you said as well, it feels like we've gone quite a ways. We've gone quite a ways since the last 5 years or so. I don't think the answer is yes, but do you think we're already at that peak, or how much would you like to see in the coming years to really take wellness being intricate in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, still very, very much so like a long way to go. When I started out over 5 years ago with UCL Esports, I don't think there was anybody else that was doing what I was doing or interested in, this particular area. There's only a subset of people that were interested in it. And But now you look, there are many different orgs and college teams that have particular individuals or groups that come in to help with their physical side of things and their mental side of things. And I think there's still, some people are doing it really well, and some people, I guess, it's not really like a priority, I would say, at the moment. Like, we still have a long way to understand that the physical and mental side of things are such a huge things. Right now, there's a lot of focus on the grind, and it's just grinding away. If we're going to play more, I'm going to be a better player. But as we all know, that if we just grind and play, that's gonna, you know, we're gonna wear out, we're gonna burn out at some point. So there has to be that balance between. And yeah, some people are doing them really well, and some people aren't. But yeah, we're making leaps and bounds, but still, yeah, there's going to be a lot of work that needs to be done.
Can I ask how much almost culture takes a part of it? Because it's interesting. At least personally, I've always been curious about this, where you see regions like the LCK or in Korea or in China, and they are obviously known as cream of the crop. Like, let's be honest. Like, I think those regions are almost superpower regions where they consider gaming capitals of the world. And if you take those game hours, right, and compare it to maybe more or from a general game hours in a study over there versus in the U.S., right, I'd imagine it skews higher towards the APAC or Asia regions. And unfortunately, sometimes the narrative is, hey, there's a reason why they're doing the best, and they almost whip them to shape. Versus the U.S., though, I think how do you combat that narrative, right? Of grinding, right? If the best successful countries are probably more likely the ones grinding those hours. Is it something that have you talked to maybe either exercise psychologists over in those regions? So are there just studies that you'd hope to take over there as well? I guess culturally speaking, do you see this more being of an American narrative and something that you guys are trying to figure out here?
Culture, and you highlight, it's such a huge, yeah, there's a huge difference. Like, yeah, coming
Hmm.
from Asia Pacific region, yeah, there is a big focus on the grind. And like you said, it's embedded within the culture to just play within, create, well, I guess, conduct that particular mindset, and that those goals that they have for that particular region. Whereas in North America, and I'd say even through Europe as well, there's more of an adoption of holistic, like, health and wellness within aspects of the grind as well. Um, yeah, I don't actually, to be honest, I haven't really talked to anybody, or if there are actually particular individuals taking care of health and wellness within that particular region, or Asia Pacific, and up through Korea and whatnot. Um, but I have heard through the grapevine, for players that are coming into North America, they're adopting the more of the practices of health and wellness that we're implementing here, and then taking those back with them, and
Hmm.
to I guess, kind of educate and being like, hey, there is a balance that we can provide here. Because I guess, like you highlighted, they are great for a reason, and it is that grind that makes them good. But it's whether, like, how sustainable is that in the long term? Because you're just
Hmm.
going to be chewing through players. So it's finding that balance between the two. Like, if you don't play, you're not going to be good, but if you play too much, then bad things could happen to you. So
Yeah.
yeah, like, hopefully there's a melding of the two over the years to come.
Yeah, no, that's certainly interesting, and I feel like almost in America, it seems like their careers seem a little bit longer. Again, I'm not using any resource or study as a guiding light here, but it feels like with that narrative and understanding our philosophies in maybe in the America or Europe regions, it does feel like you have players last a little bit longer. Now, is that skill versus whatnot? Who knows? But personally, I think following up from your case study on the traditional sports side of things, it seems like even in traditional sports, we have that philosophy here. It's very important, and we have some of the best basketball players in America, or some of the best football players, soccer in Europe. So definitely interesting, and it's cool to see the years go by, how integrated these models become, and the more studies we get, and hopefully we can figure it out in the next decade or so. Following question there is, esport players usually have quite long training times. While most of them also play slash train outside of this too, do you think they are provided with enough facilities or opportunities for proper relaxation and regeneration as to not overwork slash overstrain themselves? So, how much of it is, the great thing about being a pro is you get access to the best stuff versus if I'm an amateur, you kind of get the little short end of the stick, or good luck, get to the pros, and then you can get that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, quite a few teams and orgs have great facilities and resources available, whether it's team chefs or relaxation rooms, or access to like a fully fledged gym and like high performance trainers and psychologists and things like that. And yeah, I guess it's kind of tough when you're not at that level and you're trying to reach that level if you're an amateur or you're aspiring to become a pro and get into that region. But even when you reach that particular level, there is that certain percentage of individuals that do have access to those resources, but they're not utilizing them as well. So it's not necessarily having access to them. It's what you're doing with yourself as well. So yeah, it kind of comes back to what we're talking about with the grind mentality. And once again, it's just it's the culture it's embedded into us. But we're slowly chipping away at it and showing, with the studies and more studies that will come out to highlight of, the benefits of holistically taking care of your body, whether it's physically and mentally, that are going to help to ultimately improve your in-game and out-of-game performance.
Yeah, and it also feels like kind of what you ran through with us in the first 30 minutes. Like I think a lot of you guys aren't home at aren't at a expert super multi-million dollar training facility. But you heard yourself, Ferris, from Haylesh, that those stretches alone could definitely feel like you increase your playtime for an exponential amount, and even from a check-in level, if you're experiencing an excruciating amount of pains, I think that's your sign to go to the doctor and use their facilities.
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
yeah, and I think the next hard follow up from that stretch narrative is, do you have any recommended resources for exercise plus stretches to do for gaming, besides TSMU and or Haylesh Patel's LinkedIn?
Um, YouTube is like a great place, a great resource. Once again, the internet is full of great resources and terrible resources. Um, no particular ones off the top of my head, but if you're just looking through, well, actually, great resource is 1HP. They're doing some great stuff at 1HP. The group of physical therapists, they have a team dietitian and psychologist on board, and they're really creating great content around health and wellness as well. Um, and there are definite aspects. There's an up and coming app called Fit Gamer. It's relatively new. It's a health metric app. Helps to optimize your health and performance for all different areas of different pillars, whether it's your physical fitness, your mental ability, things like breath work and meditation. It has a great set of content in there and helps to helps you to understand where your strengths are and where your weaknesses are. Um, and yeah, if you're curious about those, I definitely recommend going to check out 1HP and FitGamer. Those are really great resources. And then just type it into YouTube if you have like a particular aim and you have like neck issues. It doesn't have to be specifically esports exercises. It's just like I have something going on with my shoulder. Type into YouTube or Google and look up to see some exercises on there that will help you out. Anything and everything's going to help you. So yeah, no direct resources, but there's a wealth of knowledge out there.
No, that's really helpful. I think, not only from the specific ones that you called out, but I think with YouTube nowadays you can kind of find anything. So I'd imagine, any stretch is a good stretch in a lot of ways. So we have one more final question for you, Halish. When you work with collegiate athletes, do you face any challenges that you believe is unique to only college esports? I think that's interesting because I know a lot of people might not get the ins and outs of college athletes from your expertise. Are there a lot of specific things that you're trying to tackle and face and handle in that space?
Yeah, collegiate athletes they're pretty special in a sense. I mean, they have a huge academic workload. I mean, at UCI, it was very competitive
Hmm.
academically. Trying to maintain your rank and play at a high level. I mean, they're scrimming and playing most days of the week, and then once again, like you highlighted, playing by themselves throughout the night. So honestly, I don't want to make a comparison to the professional league, but it's the professional scene is I guess, a different level of stress. Being a collegiate player has its different challenges as well. Like I said, academically, and then out of game and maintaining your rank and all that as well. So, with our approach with them, it was, like I said, a holistic approach, trying to make sure that we are not just focusing on their in-game performance, but their out-of-game performance, and trying to holistically improve their overall physical and mental well-being. Um, so yeah, it's a different situation. I guess from working with professional players or working with people that are just amateurs and whatnot. But on the whole, yeah, it's a challenging situation that they're in, and just yeah, like I said, holistic approach is the best approach.
Seriously, school, work, toxic gamers online when for competitive aspect of it, career on the line. Yeah, I'd imagine just those voices in your head alone seems like it could be a lot. So, thank God they have resources and professionals such as yourself, Haylesh, to help guide them through. I definitely, don't envy them in a lot of that in that sense. Those who can do it are definitely bred for it, and I'm sure stuff like this keeps their careers longer.
Yeah.
um, with that said, I thank you. I'd like to thank everyone for attending this Q&A session. I hope you guys had as much fun as I did, especially in those first 30 minutes. I'm definitely going to be taking my notes and trying to follow along post show to whenever I queue up next time around. Haylich, thank you so much for joining us. Any closing statements and anything that you want to get across to everyone to make sure that they remember.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on. As yeah, love the opportunity to be able to talk about health and wellness and esports. Like I highlighted, it's an up and coming field, but it's an important area that we should all be focusing on to make us the best that we can be, both in game and out of game.
Always do your stretches, guys.
Yeah,
um, for those fans of yours, please don't forget to join us next week, next Wednesday, July 27th at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for next episodes, and be sure to follow the channel so you know when we're live. And for those who haven't done so yet, please join the TSMU Discord channel, and you'll have all your updates and TSMU needs there. Bye, guys.